everyone, Matt here from the SWTS to do a breakdown and review of AHSOKA Episode 6, Far, Far Away. But before we get there, spoilers, alright, you've been warned. So let's get right down to it. I mean, this episode was awesome. Maybe not as nostalgically awesome as Episode 4 and 5, but it was pretty darn good, and that's because it felt fresh. Fresh Star Wars is the best Star Wars. But most importantly, I really felt like the introduction of Thrawn and Ezra were perfect. Thrawn's introduction was amazing. I'll talk about that more in my top moments, but just Thrawn as a character felt correct. Yes, I'll agree with some of you, physically in live action, he looked a little chubby, put on a few pounds as he's been chilling in exile, eating whatever sort of crap the grandmothers, as they were referred to at the end, were feeding him. But outside of that, in terms of the character, at least how he felt in Star Wars Rebel, he felt perfect in this show. Lars killed it, delivering those lines melodically, yet underneath those melodic tones, you knew it felt sinister, it felt evil. I mean, he felt even more evil than he did in Star Wars Rebels. So I really feel like Thrawn commanded every scene he was in. He demanded respect from everyone around him, even Baylan's skull. It was impressive, and obviously hearing Lars's voice delivering the animated character that he gave us in Rebels, hearing it in live action, seeing it all play out, it was perfect to me. I really thought Thrawn was well done. But yeah, I can understand why some of you thought he looked a little odd, but when it came to story, the stuff that matters, he was excellent. Same could be said for Ezra. I mean, Iman Esfandi he is Ezra in real life. He sounds just like him. He's got the connotation down. He moves like him, performs like him, and of course looks just like him. But it was awesome to get these two, just pull that scab off. We've been looking for these people in real time for 5 years now after the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 4. But in terms of the galaxy, I mean, it's been over 10 years, or close to 10 years, that Ezra and Thrawn have been missing. So if you listened to our show last night, I was like, you know what? I think we're going to get them right here in 6. And sure enough, we did, so love that. I also dug some of the lore we got in this episode, in particular the new Night Sister lore. And, you know, obviously getting the Great Mothers, seeing some Night Sisters in live action, learning more about the threads of destiny. But I really like that we got a lore dump. I'm always about Star Wars lore, even if it's, you know, inconsequential. But I don't know, I think these Night Sisters are pretty big. So I dug learning that Peridia is actually just the OG homeworld of the Dathomiri, who eventually, in our known galaxy, became the Night Sisters of Dathomir. So I dug all that type of stuff. Also learning that, you know, the Dathomiri were the first to ride the space whales and figure out how to travel in between galaxies. So why did they go to the known galaxy? Were they trying to escape something, protect something? I'm kind of thinking it's a little bit of both. Let's get away from this power, Baylan senses, but let's also protect our path just in case it tries to follow us, but maybe more on that later. And also we learned through Baylan that Peridia is where the space whales, the Purgils, go to die. So what's the significance of that? Why do they go there? Is it their home world technically? Are they like a fish or salmon? They go back to their stream to die? Who knows? But like I said, when we get lore exposition like that, I'm always a huge fan. And that extends into the mystery of Baylan's skull. I mean, he got even more intriguing and mysterious after this episode. In fact, I was starting to let people convince me that maybe Baylan was ultimately going to be good, but after this episode, I mean, this dude's clearly off his rocker, and he's got a power play in mind that is very similar to, I think, what Anakin had when he's like, hey, I can fix everything. I'll just become Darth Vader and rule the galaxy the way I think it should be ruled. That will be the way to correct all of this strife, all of this war. And Baylan is kind of taking that tone on Peridia here. He senses this beginning, this something stirring, a power, and clearly the Night Sisters are like, let's get the hell out of here. But he wants to go charging straight for it. So I love that Baylan again has been further enhanced in this episode, made even more intriguing. What is this dude's end game? What does he know that no one else does? Not even Thrawn. Or if Thrawn knows, Thrawn's like, I'm getting out of here because I don't want to mess with that. So, I mean, really, this episode continued to feel very Star Wars correct, especially with the introduction of the two Noti species. You know, we got like the little turtle rock people, and then the what I'm going to call the samurai Tuskens, because those guys in red that fought Sabine and were tracking Baylan and Shin, they felt very Tusken Raider sand people, especially the way they kind of grunt talked. So I kind of like those parallels. And the little rock people, I mean, I don't know about you all, but I got almost, Leia meeting the Ewok vibes when Sabine ran into them. So I dug meeting new species from a different galaxy. It felt very, very vintage Star Wars. And speaking of the new galaxy, I mean, it did feel new. I know it also felt familiar, so that sounds kind of wishy-washy. But it did feel like when Sabine was exploring and Baylan and Skull were looking for her, and a lot of the shots on Peridea, it did feel different. At least it wasn't a desert, right? I mean, at least we weren't on a desert. So I dug Peridea, even though it would have been cool to learn a bit more about the overall galaxy. But I just don't think that is imperative for the story Dave is trying to tell in Season 1. So, to kind of wrap up the review here, this episode just showcased how wonderful Star Wars can be when it's both new and fresh feeling, but also very familiar due to decades worth of content that came before it. And I feel like this episode kind of really hit the nail on the head when it comes to that mantra of Star Wars, giving us something fresh, but also something that feels very familiar and very anchored in the past lore of Star Wars. And we got that in spades in this episode. Obviously with the Thrawn payoffs, the space whales, the whole other galaxy, this power Baylan's looking for. Just all awesome stuff. All right, so let's get into the top moments here. And again, just like I said here, I have to list the Dathomiri lore dump. I am a lore freak when it comes to Star Wars. It could be the most important narrative thread or the least important. So like I said earlier, I really dug kind of getting this exposition, both from Baylan's point of view as a Jedi and only hearing about Peridea as a folktale, and Morgan Elsbeth as someone that is related through her ancestors to this location. I think it possibly sets up some future tales for Star Wars, or some future tales that are going to tell a bit more about the past of the true Night Sisters and where they originated from and why they had to leave Peridea, mostly, to go to the known galaxy. So, first top moment there. Second top moment, this is where I'm going to spend some time on Baylan and the power he's seeking, but ultimately the top moment here are the scenes, and there was two in particular between Baylan and Shin. There's one early on when they're on the landing platform that is essentially a recreation of that shrine we saw on Cetos, and you start to get more insights into what Baylan is thinking, what his end game is, why he committed to this mission when he really ultimately doesn't care about Thrawn coming back and starting war. So we learn he says he feels like the beginning is on Peridea, and he wants to destroy it. He wants to bring the cycle to an end, and the cycle he referred to is essentially good falls, bad rises in its place, and then good rises again and bad falls. Rinse and repeat. Obviously, the good he was using as the Jedi, the bad he used as the Empire. So, I mean, is he talking? Could this be Peridea? Is this the source of the Force? Is this how the Force made it to the known galaxy? Is Baylan contemplating trying to end the Force itself? Possibly bring a balance? Or is he going to try and take more power for himself? You know what I mean? Like, what is he referring to? I mean, in the second scene, Shin is starting to almost question him. You know, she gets a concerned look like, oh, you're not training me to be a Jedi, so what are we training to be? Why are we here? It seems the great mothers and everyone wants to get the hell out. Thrawn, they're all like, let's get out of here, and you want to be here? And he's like, yeah, you know, what I'm looking at is the great witch kingdom of the Dathomiri. Something stirs here. Can you feel it? So it does feel like the Night Sisters, in Thrawn at least, they might be wary of this power, and they want to get the hell out. And maybe that's why most of the Night Sisters have already left. They established base in the known galaxy on Dathomir. Is it the source of the Force? Is it some evil power? Is it the source of the dark side? Who knows? But the fact that he said the beginning, all right, and bringing a cycle to an end, is he going to go back and end the Jedi Order? Or like I said, just snuff out the Force from ever making it to our known galaxy, the galaxy where all Star Wars has taken place prior to Ahsoka Episode 6. So, I don't know, those are my speculations on the mystery of Baylan and the power he's seeking. I think he thinks he can dominate, tame, or alter this power, use it in his favor to potentially ensure that the Force never made it to the known galaxy, or possibly unleashing this Force on the known galaxy, kind of doing a complete nuke, a reset, which would be a callback to a line he said to Ahsoka, I believe, back in episode 4, where he's like, listen, you know, sometimes you have to destroy to create something better. So maybe he feels this power, if it is the genesis of the Force, or a more advanced, more magic-infused version of the Force, he can use it, go back to the known galaxy, and just kind of unlimited power everybody into place, and that'll fix everything. So clearly he's a bit off his rocker, and I'm starting to think now that maybe my initial theory that Shin would ultimately turn on him and go good may be coming back into fruition. All right, next top moment here is obviously the arrival of Thrawn and the Chimera. I loved how it was scripted out. I love how they played on Sabine trying to use the Force again, and just when you think, oh no, hey, it's rumbling, she's doing it, no, it's actually Thrawn showing up in his pimp ride that has been fixed from the Purrgil attack in Star Wars Rebels with some gold plating. Nice touch there. Thrawny boy. So it felt very imposing, felt very Thrawn correct. You know, hearing them chant Thrawn, Thrawn, Thrawn. It was awesome. I mean, it was just great. I love the visuals. So fun little moment here. I was gonna try to pick a few top moments with Thrawn in it. You know, Thrawn and Sabine, Thrawn and Baylan, Thrawn and Morgan. But ultimately, I decided, you know what? I'm just giving Thrawn himself a top moment. Pretty much every scene Thrawn was in, he owned for me. He dominated. I mean, you can see he command respects from everyone, even people that can use a form of the Force that is dark magic. Why are these great mothers so beholden to this man? I understand it's probably a bit of tit for tat. You know, hey, we'll help you if you help us get the hell out of here and take all these, which looks like caskets from our catacomb, potentially to bring back to the known galaxy. So it was just a great arrival. It felt very Thrawn-esque, if you will. I also was a huge fan of the meeting of the Noties, at least the little, the rock version people, the turtle rocks. It felt so much like Star Wars. It kind of reminded me of Princess Leia running into Wicket, and then ultimately the Ewoks at large. It's just that the innocence of two different races meeting, and you know they're both good, and they can't speak the same language, but they ultimately communicate through whatever gestures. I don't know. It felt true to Star Wars. It helped to expand this new galaxy a little bit and flesh out the denizens of Peridia. But they did, especially the Turtle Rocks felt very Ewok, very Jawa, while the other Noti race species introduced, like I said, felt like samurai Tuskens, but loved it all. And then really to kind of round out the top moments, Ezra, it was fantastic. I was expecting to get a little more emotional. I did not. I mean, I still smiled, and the heart felt warm, but I wasn't quite knocked on my butt like I thought I would be. But it was great to see Iman in character and just killing it. I like the dynamic between him and Sabine. I like that Sabine's kind of holding back the truth, and how Ezra is all like, heck yeah, finally someone came and got me. I can finally get out of here. But unbeknownst to him, she's got to drop a pretty huge spoiler to the moment that, like, oh yeah, by the way, I essentially teamed up with the bad guys, and now they're going to be able to take Thrawn back, the guy you sacrificed yourself for. So I pretty much screwed everything up and just delayed Thrawn's destruction by about 10 years. So rough stuff there, but overall a great reintroduction of an awesome character, and can't wait to see where things go from here. Like I said on last night's show, we'll see Ezra in at least 2 different forms. There's a nice little tease for you as we wrap things up here with it's hard to even say Easter eggs anymore, but some Star Wars references, starting with a great one from our boy Hu Yang. I was glad we got to check in with him. He is an all-star of this series, but he gives us in universe the whole a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, as he's about to recount a tale to Ahsoka. So that was awesome. Obviously, seeing live-action Night Sisters for the first time, learning about the Great Mothers. We knew Mother Talzin, Old Daka from the Clone Wars, so it was cool to get them canonized in live action. Obviously, the Chimera, Thrawn himself, these would fit in this reference list. These two were recanonized in Star Wars Rebels, but have been around since Heir to the Empire, way back, I believe, in the mid-90s. If you looked here in one of the shots when they're loading up what I believe has to be caskets for these Night Sisters, it seems like they're emptying the catacombs to take back with them, possibly to resettle Dathomir. Remember, the Night Sisters have been wiped out. Maybe they're resettling, or maybe they're forces to help Thrawn. Who knows? The reason we're looking at this shot, if you look back there, we got some of those Imperial Patrol transports that we've seen in, I think, live action. Did they show up in Mando Season 3 potentially? But we've seen them in Star Wars Rebels and other past animated Star Wars. And then obviously, we had to mention Thrawn. He was established in Rebels, so we got to mention Ezra too. There he is in live action. Way to go. So, all right, that's it, everyone. Hopefully you dug this breakdown and review of AHSOKA Episode 6, Far, Far Away. We'll be doing our thing on the Star Wars Time show. Don't forget, we're moving the show to Wednesdays. So next week, we'll be able to break down Episode 7 live with you all, as you asked, because we do what the fans want. All right, everyone, there's always time for Star Wars Time. Like, sub, comment, share, do the dance. We love you. May the Force be with you, always.